You were talking and right in the middle of your point. You thought it through first the way you always do, and you had the idea. You knew how you wanted to say it. You were about to land it, and then somebody talked right over you. Not in a mean way. Maybe they didn't even mean to. They just jumped in and filled the space. And the room went with them. And you sat there with the rest of your sentence stuck in your chest, trying to decide in a half of a second, do I jump back in or do I just let it go? So what happened? You let it go. And then you drove home that night still running it back, thinking about what you should have said. And you were tired. Not work tired, a different kind of tired. The kind you get from sitting in a room that never really noticed you were there. Welcome to the Drew Chaz Podcast. This is a show for introverts who think deeply, do good work, and feel overlooked because, let's face it, the world rewards loud, fast behavior. I help the irresistible introvert understand how their mind works, stop second-guessing themselves, and place their quiet authority where it finally gets noticed. Here's the thing, getting cut off at work isn't just annoying. If you're a quiet person in a corporate job, it's one of the things that wears you down the most because it just doesn't cost you that one moment. Over time, it changes how often you even try. You speak up less and you prep harder every time you do, which somehow makes you speak up even less because now it feels like a bigger deal. And that spiral is real and you can fix it. Well, today I'm handing you the Reclaim Framework. It's 4 simple things to say for 4 versions of the exact problem. Nothing pushy, nothing fake, just calm, clear, normal responses that sound like you on a good day and actually work at a real job. Welcome to the Drew Chaz Podcast. I'm Drew, and this is episode 19. And I'll be honest with you, I've wanted to record this one for a long time. Out of everything my listeners deal with at work, this is huge. Getting talked over, getting cut off, saying something and watching it go nowhere. It's the thing people message me about the most. It's the thing that shows up when I ask what's hardest about being a quiet person at work. And I think it hits so hard because it's not just a work problem. It feels personal. It feels like it's about you. Once is annoying, but when it keeps happening, it starts to whisper the things a lot of quiet people already worry about. That your voice doesn't count as much. That what you say just isn't as important as the loud person says. So let me say this straight. Before we go any further, getting talked over a lot is not proof that your voice doesn't matter. It's proof that you're in a room with certain habits. Habits you can learn to read and change. Not by becoming someone else, but by becoming smarter with who you already are. Let me start by showing you what's really going on when a quiet person gets cut off. Once you see it, the fix is obvious. So here's what you're getting today. First is a plain explanation of why people get cut off more than their share at work and what's really driving it. Second, the Reclaim Framework. It's 4 responses for 4 different versions of this. The exact words to say, the tone to use, and when to say it so it lands. And third, the longer game, how to change the pattern for good so the interruptions start to stop on their own. And then fourth, how to handle it when it's one specific person or when you need to bring it to your manager. I'll give you the exact way to say both. So why do quiet people get cut off? Well, to get this, I have to tell you how most work meetings actually run versus how we pretend they run. On paper, meetings are organized. There's an agenda, people take turns, the best idea wins. But in real life, most meetings run on vibes. The people who talk the most talk first and sound the most sure end up running the room. It's not about whose idea is better. It's about who sounds confident and who talks a lot. Well, quiet people work differently. You think first, you build the point in your head before you even say it, and you usually take a beat before you talk. Not because you're unsure, but because you're being careful. But in a fast meeting, that little pause is an open door, and someone sees the gap, thinks it's their turn, and they take it. Most of the time, the interruption isn't personal and it's not mean. It's just a reflex that happens in rooms where fast and loud gets rewarded. And we see that all the time. Well, why does this matter? There's two reasons. One, it means the interruption isn't a judgment on you. It's not. It's just how the room works. And two, it tells you the fix. You don't need to get louder or faster. You need a few specific moves for holding your spot, getting back in after you're cut off, and slowly changing the rooms you're in. The goal isn't to out loud the loud people. The goal is to be so steady and so consistent that the room starts adjusting to you instead of you always bending to it. So let's talk about the reclaim framework and the four scenarios. And I'm going to walk you through all four. For each one, I'll give you the setup, what's really going on, the exact words to use, the tone to hold, and the mistakes to avoid. So in scenario one, the mid sentence cutoff. This is the most common one and the most maddening. You're talking and someone talks right over you. Usually not to fight you, they just had a thought and the room let them say it without waiting. Well, most quiet people go quiet. You sit there wondering if it's even worth the awkwardness of jumping back in. And you usually decide the moment's gone. Then you spend the next 10 minutes a little annoyed, which quietly makes you say less for the rest of the meeting. Well, here's what I want you to do instead. The exact second your interrupter takes a breath, you get back in. You don't get louder. You don't speed up to compete. Same pace, same tone. And you say, well, I want to come back to the point I was making because I think it connects directly to what you just said. And then you finish your point. Not a quick summary of it, the actual point all the way through. Look at what that line does. It doesn't call the person out. It doesn't say, like I was saying before you so rudely cut me off, which is true though. But it starts a little fight and pulls the room's attention onto the drama instead of your idea. Instead, it ties your point to theirs. It makes you the person building on the conversation, not fighting for a spot in it. And it gives you a totally normal reason to keep talking that even the loudest person in the room just can't argue with. The tone is calm and easy, and you're not asking for permission. You're just picking up where you left off. The difference is everything. The mistake to avoid is to wait too long. Every extra second makes jumping back in feel harder and actually more awkward for both you and the room. And the second they breathe, you go. Not pushy, just steady, no hesitation. So, scenario two, you say it, nobody reacts, then someone else gets the credit. This one stings even more, doesn't it? Because there's a delay. You say something, room's quiet, things move on. Then 5 or 10 minutes later, a louder coworker says basically the same thing, and now the room loves it. Well, there's a reason this happens. In most meetings, ideas catch on based on how the room reacts, not just how good the idea is. When a quiet person says something plainly with no big energy, it just sends a different signal than a loud person saying it with excitement. The room follows the energy, not just the words. But that doesn't mean the room is right, but it does mean you need a response. So say it right away and stay calm. The moment the room reacts well to the repeated version, you say this. I'm glad that framing is landing. I was trying to get at something similar just a few minutes ago, and I want to make sure we capture the full version of it before we move on. And then add whatever extra detail you originally had. So what that line does is it puts on the record out loud without blaming anyone. It makes you look generous, like you're building on the moment instead of fighting it. And if anyone's taking notes or forming an opinion, your name is now on the idea. So do this a few times and the room, including your manager, starts listening more carefully the first time you talk because they start to notice bit by bit that what you say is worth catching. But the mistake to avoid is waiting too long or making it a complaint. I said that 20 minutes ago is true, and it makes you look bad, though. The version we talked about is just as true, and it makes you look good. But scenario three is one person keeps talking over you. And we all know who that person is, right? When it's the same person again and again, it's not a room problem anymore. It's between the two of you, and it needs a real conversation. Not in the meeting, but after, and not a fight, just two adults talking. And here's how: ask for a few minutes one on one, not by email, but in person, right after the meeting where it happened. Do you have 10 minutes before your next call? I want to run something by you. Then in that conversation, you say, I wanted to talk to you about something I've noticed in our last few meetings. I've been cut off a couple of times before I finish my point, and I don't think you noticed it happening, but I'd really appreciate being able to complete my thoughts when I'm speaking. I think it would then help both of us get more out of the discussions. Well, let me break that down. I don't think you noticed it happening. That's not you being soft. That's a gift. It lets them off the hook, but which makes them way more likely to actually change. If you say they did it on purpose, they get defensive, don't they? And now you're arguing with your intentions instead of fixing the thing. If you say it was an accident, they can just agree and change without feeling attacked. I'd really appreciate being able to complete my thoughts. That's the ask. Clear and specific. It's about one behavior, not about feelings. You're not asking them to think differently about you. You're just asking for one thing to change. I think it would help both of us to get more out of the discussions. Well, that makes it a win for everyone, not just a favor to you. Better conversations are better for the whole room. Most people, when you come at it this way, are honestly surprised, and they mean it when they say they'll change. Not because they were secretly bad and suddenly turned good. It really was an accident. Now that someone named it calmly and clearly, they have something to actually fix. But here's the truth. This talk is way scarier in your head than it is in real life. Quiet people rehearse head conversations over and over. And in the rehearsal of the other person is always more defensive than what it really turns out to be. Plan it, then trust the plan and go have it. So scenario four, your work doesn't get the credit. This one has the longest sting because there usually isn't one clear moment. You did a ton on the project, but when the leadership thanks the team, your name isn't there. Or someone emails your boss to thank the team and describes your work like it was somebody else's. Or you get feedback that tells you the people who mattered didn't see what you did. Now, there are two levels here: right now and long term. Right now, when you don't get credit in front of people, just bring it up in your next one on one with your manager. Just say, I want to make sure the work I contributed on whatever the project is visible in the right places. I was specifically responsible for whatever it was, which produced and then the outcome. I'd appreciate it if it was reflected when the work gets discussed or recognized going forward. So that's professional. It's specific and not an accusation. You're not saying your boss ignored you on purpose. You're just handing them the facts that they need in the right form, which they usually didn't have. But long term, this is really a tracking problem. It's the contribution log we talked about in the last episode. The fix is making sure your manager always has an up-to-date picture of what you're doing all year. So when the credit moment comes, the picture's already there. And there's a third piece nobody talks about enough, and that's claiming credit in the moment. When you do something real in real time, you solve it. You find the answer. You connect the dots that nobody else did. Well, don't sit back and hope someone notices. Say it yourself. Not loud, no fanfare, just clear and plain, right then or right after. You say, I've been working on this problem and I think I found the approach that resolves it. Can I walk you through it? I sent an analysis earlier this week that I think speaks to exactly what we're discussing. So let me pull it up. Check this out. That result last week came from the specific thing you did. I want to make sure that's clear for the group. Well, let me tell you, that's not bragging. That's just letting people know where your good work came from. You're giving them the facts as they understand it, right? So you need to change the pattern long term. But before we close the framework, I want to give you the part that matters more than any single line, and that's the long game. Every response I gave you works in the moment, but the real goal isn't to survive interruptions better, it's to become the person who gets interrupted less. And that comes from doing it over and over. Every time you jump back in after getting cut off, every single time, you teach the room that your spot isn't up for grabs. And every time you put your idea on the record after someone repeats it, you teach the room that your work gets tracked. And when you have that one on one with the person who talks over you and they change, everyone who saw it learns something about how you. So just do this for 6 months to a year and something shifts. I'm telling you, the room starts waiting for you to finish. People who used to talk over you start pausing, and your boss starts naming your work more clearly. The room starts adjusting to you instead of you always bending to it. Well, that's not luck and it's not magic. It's just what happens when somebody quietly and steadily takes their spot, one conversation at a time. Quiet authority isn't built in one big meeting. It's built one meeting at a time, one line at a time until the room learns you're worth listening to. So I'm going to give you a quick win challenge this week. So write down the line you'll use the next time you get cut off. I want to come back to the point that I was making because I think it connects directly to what you just said. Now say it out loud 3 times, not in your head, but out loud. Saying it with your actual mouth makes it way easier to reach for when that real moment hits. And your only job this week is to use it once, just once, in your very next meeting where it fits. So let me tell you something that's important to me that I've put together that I've worked on for quite some time. And I want to talk about it because this episode ties right into the promotion playbook jumpstart. The reclaim framework, the visibility stuff, all the exact wording, it's all built out in full inside the playbook with worksheets and word for word guides for the exact spots quiet people get stuck. Because knowing the idea is step one, but having the words ready before you need them, practice, made yours, ready to go, is what actually changes how you show up. The promotion playbook jumpstart. It's released now, and I'm really proud of it. And I think you're going to benefit from it greatly. It's just a mini course, and you can get through it in 1 hour, but you'll have all this information to get you started so that you can get that promotion this year without changing who you are, or networking, or becoming an extra loud person, or trying to be extroverted. So go to drewchaz.com/courses, get your copy. So let me pull the whole framework together before we wrap up. So scenario one is the cutoff. Get back in the second they breathe. I want to come back to the point I was making because I think it connects directly to what you just said. And then finish. No apology, no stalling, same tone you had before. And then scenario two is the repeated idea. I'm glad that framing is landing. I was trying to get at something similar a few minutes ago, and I want to make sure we capture the full version of it before we move on. So put it on the record out loud, no blame, right when the room reacts. And scenario three is the repeat offender. Talk to them after the meeting, call it an accident, ask for one specific change, point out it helps both of you. Trust it. It almost always goes better than you rehearsed in your head. And then scenario four is no credit. Bring it up in your next one-on-one with specifics. Use the contribution log. Claim your credit in real time. Build a year-round system so credit moments aren't surprises. And across all four, the engine is doing it over and over. You don't change a room in one meeting. You change it one meeting at a time until the room learns to listen for you. So this is what we learned today is that getting cut off is a room problem, not a judgment on your worth. Once you see how the room works, the sting fades and the fix shows up. Going quiet after you're interrupted is the most expensive thing you can do. Every time you let it slide, the next try gets harder. Getting back in is a skill. Like any skill, it gets easier the more you do it. And the line is your practice until it feels normal. And no credit? You have to claim it in the moment, in one-on-ones, and through the year-round contribution log. And the real win is the room changing. Do this for 6 months to a year, and the whole room treats you differently without you becoming someone that you're not. Listen, you're going to get interrupted again. That's not me being negative. That's just how most workplaces are. But starting today, the interruption isn't the last word. You know what to say, you know how to say it, and you know that stacking up those small, calm, steady moments is what changes the room over time. That's what quiet authority actually looks like. Not one big dramatic moment, just the patient, steady work of taking your spot again and again until the room knows your name. Don't forget the Promotion Playbook Jumpstart. It's available now. Go to drewchaz.com/courses and jump right into it. I promise you, it's a game changer. Listen, if this episode helped you see yourself more clearly, please follow or subscribe to the Drew Chaz Podcast. Leaving a review helps other introverts just find my show, and sharing this episode helps someone else feel less alone in their thinking. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. So remember, your analytical mind is not what's holding you back. It's your greatest asset when you know how to use it. So until next time, keep thinking deeply, keep moving forward, and most of all, you be you.